Hey folks, hope everyone is doing well. Today I have a mini review of the Swordier Templar Longsword. The model number is SWM1019 on their website, and it sells for $189 plus shipping. The sword is currently on loan to me by Swordier as a review sample, and after I'm done with it, it'll be making its way over to Kane Shen for a more educated assessment. First thing worth noting is that it's an in-house design. The features were chosen by Alex of Swordier to be a hybrid fantasy historical heavy longsword, rather than the lighter single-handed arming swords we see used in the 11th and 12th century. Build-wise, it has their standard cord-wrapped handle and the signature twisted crossguard that Swordier uses for these. The crossguard, mouth, chape, and pommel are all made of stainless steel with a satin finish. Here on the pommel is the design of the Maltese cross, or St. John's cross, common to relics of the Knights Templar, with an inscription in Latin, Sigillum Militvam Expisti, which translates to the seal of the soldiers of Christ, or something along those lines. The cross motif carries on to the peen, where they've also carved a little cross onto the bottom, and it's possible this could be detrimental to the structural integrity, but I personally didn't notice any problem. In fact, the entire handle assembly is held up really well, and it's one of the things I really like about it. Here you can see the crossguard is well aligned to the sword, with only a small gap where the crossguard meets the tang. This is a big improvement over the previous longsword I bought from them, and I appreciate the extra attention to detail there. One problem I have with the sword though is the weight. It was listed at 1,600 grams and arrived exactly 100 grams over spec. So at 1,700 grams, 3¾ pounds, I found this sword way too heavy for me. Now it might be better suited for you, but I'm only 5'9", about 160 pounds, so to me this feels like a great sword. I had a lot of trouble getting this thing to accelerate, and it took a lot of strength to bring it to a controlled stop. Another problem I had was the factory sharpness. This is hard to see, but it came with a little secondary bevel, and even with a good profile, it was still quite dull right out of the box. So there it is, having a nice home run. Probably one of my best, but I don't think my neighbors appreciated it slamming into their garage door. After a lot of reprofiling, I was able to bring it up to paper cutting sharp, though it took a lot of effort to reshape. Sharpened up, it was performing much better on pop bottles, even clipping apart some empty pieces which can be difficult to cut. The sword was doing much better than expected at this point, especially when struck at exactly the point of percussion. This next one was a weird one though. Sometimes I would cop a lot of resonance, like a jarring vibration, even making me think the crossguard had rattled loose. It actually didn't, everything was still tight. It just was really weird sometimes with like an awkward resonance. This next one was a fun one. I was able to pull a lucky static cut on a pop bottle, though you can see how rough and mangled the entry of the cut was. It's not clean, but still I thought it was worth noting that it can do that. Anyway, that was about where my happiness with the sword ended. I decided to try it out on some double cuts, and the results were pretty poor with this type of cutting. I've landed this pattern hundreds of times with lots of success, though with this one I had a lot of trouble accelerating and controlling the blade. These doubles require a quick and snappy type of motion in my opinion, and I found the 1,700 gram weight was definitely a detriment to the sword's ability. And even when I eventually landed both bottles, I was still cursing the sword for being excessively heavy and hard to use. I should not have to try this hard just to land a simple double cut. This last attempt was probably the worst. Not because the cut failed, it didn't, but because I found myself struggling more than ever with the weight of it. A few seconds after the swing, my upper back totally locked up, like a nerve pinch from trying to move too much weight too quickly. So despite succeeding at the cut, it further reinforced my unhappy feelings with it. So do I think this is a bad sword? Yes and no. It's definitely not the sword for me, but I have to admit the tempering, presence, and construction are all actually well done, and someone else might like it if a heavy longsword is what you're looking for. In conclusion, despite my misgivings, I do want to thank Alex at Swordier for hearing my complaints here. From the dull edge to the weight being over spec, Alex told me he agrees this sword requires an update, and they're working on some changes in order to make it more usable. I'm hoping that if enough people review their swords and are honest with their feedback, then Swordier has a better chance of producing blades that live up to their potential, because the heat treatment of the 65mm steel is actually very good. So thank you guys for watching this review, and thank you again to Swordier for sending me the sample without any strings attached. I never felt any pressure from them that I was obligated to make a positive review, and despite the problems I have with it, Alex always approached the topic in a professional way and was happy for the user feedback. So even if I don't like the sword, the customer service and communication aspect was as good as I could hope for. So anyway, thank you guys for hearing my opinion on this one. That's all I got for now. Cheers and have a good day.